Hello, folks. So great pleasure to present for this excellent user group. My name is Maxim Salnikov, and in just 1 second, I will share my screen. So this is actually intro slide and the slide about me. And I don't have slide deck for this presentation, purely technical demo. And this is just a page of the simple website we are going to use as a Guinea pig today. Super briefly about me. I work for Microsoft. I live in Norway. I do developer engagement for Microsoft Norway. You can find me on Twitter, webmaxru. I tweet mainly about web platform, about cool web APIs, in particular about PWA. I'm big fan of progressive web apps. And I'm big fan of developer communities. So I run a bunch of meetups in Oslo, where I live. I run 2 full-scale conferences, NG Vikings, about Angular and mobile era for mobile developers. And I do lots of technical speaking. It's my pleasure to speak at the conferences, at meetups, large, small, all size matters. And I think I will share the link to this demo, repo, and the intro slide right after my session. So you will have all this information very quick. Good, let's start. So what I'm going to demo today. Relatively new service from Azure Cloud, from Microsoft, focused on front-end web developer audience. And it's officially my favorite service. I spent 20 years in web front-end development or full-stack development before joining this developer relations role. So yeah, so I was super happy when Azure Static Web App service was introduced earlier this year. I believe it was during MS Build, so maybe just a couple of months ago, or even shorter period of time. So it's new. Currently, it's in preview, and we'll do completely live demo. So everything can happen, but let's keep fingers crossed. What do we have for the demo? This GitHub repo. Let me make a bit larger font size. It's an Angular application, but we don't care about Angular part today completely. It's just super simple Angular app, which is not far from the scaffolded template you have by running ng new command. So it's just a couple of pages and a couple of sections just for our test purposes. So just imagine you as a front-end web developer created this app, Angular, React, Gatsby, 11t, whatever. So single page application or statically generated site, anything, front-end part of this. And you want to build it, you want to deploy it, and you want to host it after all. Plus, you want to get some nice helpers for you to help with authentication, with routing, maybe with a couple more things. Can Azure help you? Yes, since introduction of this service, yes. Let me jump to this tab, which is Azure portal open. And yeah, I hope my session is still alive. And you'll find this one here. So first, how to test it. If you don't have Microsoft Azure Cloud account, you just go and register free trial. It's completely free. And the service we are talking about today is also we will not charge your credit card because it's in preview. And yeah, just speaking a bit in advance, I don't know about pricing, no information about it yet. So it's currently in preview and free. Let's create a new one. And it's as simple as just pointing to your GitHub repo. So resource group, let's have it SWA demo, a single static web apps demo. I created it in advance. And this is just to group your resources. Name, let's call it JAMstack Berlin. Region, not every region available yet, but let's pick, for example, US one, and SKU, it's only free now. Next, we'll be asked to sign in with GitHub, and I have some organizations, and as a repo loading, let's pick the one called SWA Angular. Scrolling, this one. And also you have to pick the branch. We currently have only master. Then we can click review plus create. I think I forgot to put some important details. And basically these three settings are the main ones you need to successfully build and deploy your application. First, we have our app itself in root folder. API location, we'll talk about it a bit later. And this one is important, and this one is different for particular frameworks, if you use the framework, of course. And basically, this is the folder where framework engine generates the output for being deployed. And in case of Angular, in latest versions, it's something like dist and the name of the app, which is SW Angular. How to keep this like in mind and not to guess. In the documentation, there is a special section dedicated to some popular frameworks, and you see the list is quite extensive. And yeah, if you take Angular as example, yeah, you just have to provide app artifact location. Okay, I think it all looks good. Now we are ready to review and create. All looks good. Let's create this. And the resource itself will be created quite fast. In just a few seconds, you will see this. Yes, go to resource. It doesn't mean that our application is ready and hosted yet. Why? Because we need to give some time for it to be built and deployed, right? But anyway, we already have, let me close this one, URL, which we will use as a test address of our app. If we open this, I believe, yes, it's waiting for content. Meanwhile, we will go to our GitHub repo because it was slightly changed after this action. And in particular, this file was added there. And let's go and check this one. So you remember that we gave an access to our GitHub repo, to Azure portal, and it during the previous steps, it created this file. Basically, this is GitHub Actions workflow. We will not go through all the details, of course. This is not session about Azure DevOps, sorry, about GitHub Actions. Let's say it does its best guesses about your application, and for majority of popular frameworks, you don't need to do any changes. And basically, these all the parameters we provided to these forms while we created the application, API location, and artifact location. And if we go to the actions of GitHub repo, we'll see that something is happening, and this build was actually triggered by our action that we just created this resource. We can go and check what's going on, and yeah, for Angular app, it takes maybe 2-3 minutes to build, and before the build, of course, this action recreates the full environment, like it installs needed libraries, packages, Angular command line itself, etc., etc. So, and now I see by this process that it's final step of building Angular application itself. So I think we can just for the sake of time, we can. It's almost done. And basically, what happens now? It's building, then it will be deployed to the server location, to Azure servers, and this will be available for us to check. So basically, yes, this is very final step. It's zipping, uploading, and this process will happen on pretty much every commit, every push we do against this repo, which is, of course, it might take some time, right? But on the other hand, it's fully automatic. And of course, time of build depends on particular framework. Yes, visit your site. I think we can, and just final actions, we can go and check it again. Yes, this is basically application we just built, deployed, and hosted on Azure, just by providing address of our GitHub repo and branch. About branch, of course, you know, now it looks like a toy, right? So you just do some changes in your application, maybe online using GitHub editor, maybe using your VS Code. But what about real production? When you have multiple branches, when you need to test something before switching this to production, we are also covered here. And let me demo different staging environment or pre-production environment. Let's go back to our repo. Let's open this here, and let's also I wanted to show you something why I opened this editor. How does Azure Static Web App service understand how to build this application exactly? Well, no magic here. It just runs npm run build, and on the same page where we were before, page of the documentation. By the way, documentation is pretty good and complete for the current snapshot of what this service can do, and also it says us maybe we want to change this command to run a production build, and we can also achieve this by just adding more adding one more parameter to this GitHub workflow file, which is custom build command. We can find all the documentation here, so we just basically add build command, and we have exactly what we want if we say a bit more customized build compared to the default one. But let's go back to the staging environment. Let's open source and let's edit any file. Like maybe the simplest option will be to change the title, because we'll see the change very easily. Let's change it to test, and let's create a new branch. Okay, that's fine. Propose changes and create pull request. Bam. What happens now? We trigger another another part of Azure, GitHub Actions workflow called pull request. And if we go back to Actions, we'll see that it's performing, title updated. This is its name. And yeah, in a few minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes, because basically exactly the same thing happens. We create environment, we install needed Angular packages, we build the application itself. But what will happen in a few minutes, in the environments list, we'll have one more, which is attached to this branch, to this pull request. And this will have completely new URL compared to this one. So you see, by the way, every time you create static web app, you get this randomized name host for test purposes. Of course, maybe not a good idea to use this in production. And you can go and assign your custom domain. It's quite easy, but we'll not spend time on this in this session. Okay, let's skip this for now. So I see it's building, and let's talk about other helpers we have. And we'll go back to this staging environment a bit later, when it created. Authentication. No, let's start from even simpler concept. Single page application created by Angular framework, React framework, any SPA framework. Maybe it's not that relevant, for example, to statically generated websites when we, let's say, physically have index HTML in every single folder for particular URLs. But for SPAs, we have to ask the web server to redirect pretty much everything to the root, right? Otherwise, we'll get, after anything like mysuperwebsite.com/something, we'll get 404. How are we covered in Azure Static Web Apps? We are, luckily, because we can create a file called roots.json. And I have it in my repo. Let's open this. And let's skip this to this part. So basically, this is super simple router focused on front-end applications need. What we say, please, dear web server of Azure Static Web App Service, any root you have, and we're saying by this template, serve actually index HTML instead of this. And status code, it goes like 200 by default, but here I just decided to have it explicitly just to emphasize that this is not an error, this is a regular situation, and our JavaScript code will understand what to do. Well, okay, and then the last part of all the flow is to make sure that roots.json will end up in the root folder of the application. Again, if for your particular app you have to have files like this in different folder, it's also just a question of passing parameter. But Azure Static Web Apps is searching for roots.json in the root by default. In case of Angular, I put it into source assets folder, and by some magic, Static Web Apps will understand that it's Angular and copy these files to the proper location. But you are completely free to do it more explicitly, more prominently. Good. I think this part was completed successfully. Let's give it a try. Oh, sorry, I'm on wrong section. Yes, so what happened? We created pull request with some change. Oh, let me hide this one. And we have completely new website, again, generated, built, deployed for us. You see that change is here called test. So we can do, I don't know, any kind of end-to-end test we need. And if that works fine, if we go back to our pull requests, and do something with this one. For example, what we can do, we can merge this, or we can close this. If we merge this, this version will swap the production one, the current one. If we close this, what I'm going to do now, this test environment will just be deleted. So let's say that in this case, we are not happy with this change. So let's forget about this option, and that's it. Okay, let's go back to other helpers we have. And I believe we'll stop today on authentication part. Quite often, if not always, for more or less complex applications, we need to authenticate user just to get some extra details, or to give some permissions if you are talking about I don't know, a user account page, etc. We have nice set of helpers in Azure Static Web Apps service. And here we have folder. It's a virtual folder called .auth. And yeah, so please make sure that you don't have a folder with a similar name in your application. So let's consider this as a system folder. By folder, I mean URL in the browser. And we have set of authentication providers, which might help us. Let's, for example, try to ask user to be authenticated without any extra requirement. So let's say we just want to have this particular section for authenticated users. Okay, so what do we do then? We can redirect people, users of our application, to the URL called, yeah, if you see in the bottom, .auth/login/GitHub. And among providers of authentication, we have GitHub, Twitter, Facebook, Azure Active Directory. I think that's, and in yeah, GitHub I mentioned. Yes, so if we redirect people to this URL, and of course, you remember that we have routes JSON where we can make these URLs more friendly. What do I mean? Just have a look here. We are saying, if someone types or gets to /login, actually, please serve this system URL. Okay, let's give it a try. Maybe I was logged in before, but let's check. Here, application called Identity at Azure Static Apps, which is like umbrella app for all static web apps on Azure. Let me give a consent. Yes, visually nothing happened, right? But if we go to one more system URL, which is .auth/me, we have to see something. Yeah, so it says, first, this is my username on GitHub, and this is webmaxru because I was authenticated on github.com before, and my roles. So anonymous, this is goes for every user, authenticated or not, and authenticated. And basically, anonymous and authenticated are two built-in roles for Azure Static Web App service. At least this is how it works for now. What next? Well, we decide. We can send, for example, fetch requests to this URL every time we need to get some information about user. We can populate the fields of information about users as we need. Maybe it makes sense to mention logout, which is also by default it .auth/logout, but we can give it a user-friendly name and hide this complexity from our visitors. So if we click logout, again, visually nothing happens, but if we go to check the status, I think, yes, so we are completely logged off. Let me use last couple of minutes for showcasing a bit more interesting scenario of authentication. So it was about any authenticated user, right? What about the case when we want to give administration permission? For example, I don't know, if we create some protected user account and we need to assign some roles. We also have this covered here. We invite users and provide particular role to them. Let's continue using GitHub, and this is my user handle on GitHub. We will use our test domain, which is good for our test purposes. And here we can give any custom role. And yeah, I was not very creative, and let's protect this by the role called administrator. 1 hour is fine. Generate. Basically, that's it. Then we have to share somehow this invitation link to this person, which is in my case, myself. Then we go here. I think we skipped all consent and all confirmation steps because I have the cookie on my system already, but normally the user will get some consent page. And let's check the status. Oh yes, you see, now we have this very explicitly set role called administrator. And if we go back to our roots JSON file, let me find it here. Code src assets roots JSON. You will see that I have one section protected by the explicitly named role administrator. Let's give it a try now. Now we have to have an access. Let's test admin. Oh, something goes wrong, which is interesting. Let me double check. No, not here. Admin index HTML. Let me check profile first. Okay, it's here. Ah, yes. So I just accepted the invitation, but maybe I have to log in explicitly. Yes, maybe it was expired. And let's give it a try now. Yes, it was just a wrong status. Administration works. Well, this is how this custom role set looks like. Well, I think let's stop here. Let's wrap up here. One last piece which was untouched on this session is creating API, but let's keep this for our next meeting. And in a brief, you can create your serverless APIs easily using the same idea, same approach. So you can just create your JavaScript-based, I mean Node.js-based serverless APIs and attach them to your application. So let me check. I think I have a couple of them already deployed, so it might appear not immediately. Yeah, meet and greet. Yeah, so this is just a regular APIs exposed to our front-end application. Let me go back to my intro slide. Just to remind you, my Twitter, webmaxru. That's pretty much it. I'm open for your questions, dear developers.